Well, 40 years ago, two legendary prog rock guitarists teamed up, and the results were, well, I don't actually know because I have never heard a note of it until today. Hey, I'm Joe, or JSB, and today I'm making one of my rare forays into new territory, if you can call a 40-year-old album new. Anyway, it's the debut and indeed final album ever by GTR, the one and done 80s supergroup comprised of Steve Howe from Yes, Steve Hackett from Genesis, and some other people, including a bloke who was once a member of my favourite band of all time. But more on that later. As with Howe's other 80s supergroup Asia earlier in the decade, this is an album that was greatly anticipated by the prog community up until the point that they actually heard it. But their mismatched expectations don't necessarily a disaster make, and many others took it to their hearts for what it was. I gather a more kind of pop rock affair, and honestly, that's fine by me. Probably. I honestly have no clue what I'm going to make of this. 1986 is a tricky year, and it might sound horribly dated at this point, or the songs and performances might carry it through. So I'm hoping it will be up my alley, and I'll be left wondering why it took me so damn long to check it out. But we shall see. As ever, I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's going to be a random foreplay, which means throwing it on shuffle and selecting four songs to hear along the way. And by the end, I will know if I need to hear or indeed own the whole album. So let's dive in and select the first song that I'm ever going to hear from GTR through the power of total randomness. Okay, there's 10 songs here, so that means I am going to play whatever the first song is that comes up when I hit play. And then after that, I will pick from three choices each time and hope that the two I want to hear don't come up in the same batch, because then I can only hear one of them. Those are the rules. Yeah, let's hit play, see what happens. Here we go. All right, The Hunter. All right, that long, slow 80s fade out. Cool. Now, before I carry on, if you just heard 10 seconds of that song, that's because you're on the short version of this video. Yes, there's an even longer one. So down below there is a link in the comments, or more likely the description, where you can see the full thing with the music played out in full. Otherwise, if you just want to see what I think of these songs, then you can stay right here on the short version. Yay. Now, I'm glad we started with The Hunter, because that is one of two songs that I did want to definitely hear, and it means that the other one is safe. Whatever it comes up against, I will play later. You can probably guess which one I mean. Um, but this one's quite different from anything else on the album, and I can say that without having heard anything else, uh, for a number of reasons. A, it is written by their producer, who was actually Jeff Downes, the keyboardist for Asia. There's no keyboardist in the band, but he kind of fills that role as well, I suppose. Um, and so he wrote the song, but he didn't write any of the others or even contribute to the writing of any of the others, which is one thing that's interesting. And the other thing that's interesting is, of course, he later remade the song with Asia in the John Payne era. And if you've been on the channel recently, you might have seen me talking to John Payne about the Arena album that came out the year before they did that. So if you haven't, check it out. Anyway, I know that version very well, and I love that song. So it was interesting to hear this original version. I'm going to refrain from making judgment on the vocalist, Max Bacon, at this stage, because through that song, I was just comparing him to John Payne, whereas in the rest, I'll just be hearing him do what he does in his own style, so to speak, without comparison. I liked that version quite a lot, and I don't hear anything that's giving me warning bells that I'm not going to like whatever else I might find as I go along into these next bunch of tracks. So fingers crossed that Hackett and Howe and their brethren can come up with the goods on the songwriting front, as Jeff did on that one. Now, of course, that was the second single from the album, and this wasn't a smash success like the first Asia album, but it did pretty well, especially in America. It made 11, the album did, and went gold. Only 41 in the UK, but, and as a single that didn't actually do much, only made number 85, whereas the first single did a lot better. And yeah, we'll get to that at some point, but I don't know when, because that is up to Spotify to give me in one of my future batches of three to choose the next three songs. I hope that makes sense. So on that basis, let's see what my first proper choice is going to look like. Yeah, here we go. So I can toe the line. I can Here I wait, or I can reach out, never saying no. And do you know what? I have nothing to go by on any of those, so I'm just going to go with the one that's come up as the third on that because why not? If you do know this album and think that the other two are way better and I should have picked one of those, let me know. Otherwise, hopefully we'll enjoy this one together. So this is Reach Out, Never Say No. Let's hear it. Cool. Another 80s fade out, not too long one that time, but yeah, well, I can hear why the prog fans didn't like this album, but it's working for me. Cool riffage there, and I'm assuming that it's Hackett that. It didn't sound very Howe-esque to me, and I know Steve Howe's playing a lot more than I know Steve Hackett's. But the interplay between the guitars, especially in the end section there, was pretty cool. And as I suspected, when I wasn't having to compare him to another vocalist that I know, Max Bacon brought home the bacon. He's got a great name, doesn't he? I mean, Max Bacon to me is, um, well, it goes along with minimum lettuce and tomato because that's how you make a BRT. Yeah, well, tumbleweeds, great. But seriously, no, good vocalist. Probably should have been on more big albums over the years than he was, but I'm enjoying him there. And while we're talking personnel, this is the only song co-written by bass player Phil Spaulding, along with Hackett and Howe, who wrote the bulk of the album together. And that leaves person I mentioned who was briefly in my favorite band. So who is he and who is that band? Well, the guy is an American. His name is Jonathan Mover. And he was in Marillion for, maybe as long as a month. Um, they kind of had a period after they fired their original drummer where they ran through multiple drummers over one summer, and he was the last of them before they got Ian Mosley, and who of course remains with the band to this day. Basically, Jonathan and Fish did not get on, and Fish delivered one of his "it's him or me" ultimatums that he was so fond of doing at that point in time, and so he was gone. So he did get a co-writing credit on Punch and Judy, and that's basically the only thing he had a chance to contribute to during his brief time. But I'm enjoying his drumming here, and actually, when Ian came in to the band and asked what happened with Jonathan Mover, Fish just said he was American, and Ian was married to an American himself at that point in time, and he just said, "Oh, well, you get on well with my wife then." Um, yeah. Anyhow, yeah, two good ones. I'm now feeling highly confident that I'm going to enjoy whatever else comes up now. You know, I'm not going to get into the lyrics on this; they seemed decent, uh, but it's the riff and the guitar work that carried the song, and I dare say is going to be a recurring theme across this album because it's the kind of album it is. Right, so it's probably time for a Spotify ad, but if it's not, I'll try and find a third song to choose out of another three options. I did get Spotify ads, but you didn't because why would I leave that in? Anyway, I have got again three options. The first is Hackett to Bits, Ho Ho. Second, Jekyll and Hyde, and finally Sketches in the Sun. Well, that makes this one easy because Hackett to Bits is a little, I gather, Steve Hackett, obviously guitar piece, solo, and Sketches in the Sun is the same Steve Howe. Um, although it does actually have lyrics, which I wasn't expecting. Um, Either way, I'm going to go to the proper song, which is Jekyll and Hyde, which is actually the only track that Max Bacon has a co-writing credit on. Now, this does mean I'm not going to play the track that Jonathan Mover has a co-writing credit on because, well, you know what's going to be last, don't you? Um, Spoiler alert, the hit single. But for now, let's see what they can do with Jekyll and Hyde. sort of a proper ending on that one. Yeah, they named the album well, didn't they? Because it's the guitar that is the star of the show. But I am enjoying Max Bacon's vocals and Jonathan Mover's drumming. Pretty good stuff. Um, yeah, it's not vaguely proggy at all. And like I say, that doesn't bother me. But if it's what you came to this album expecting, then you'd be disappointed. But hopefully, and this is a thing that we don't do often enough, is we have expectations of something, and if it doesn't meet them, then we think, oh, that's bad, rather than actually listening to what it actually is and seeing whether we do actually like it for that or not. And I guess it's a time to bring up the critical reception to this album, which was mixed. I see Mick Wall apparently gave it 5 Ks in Kerrang, which is not often done. Um, Maybe just because Jonathan Mover was in the band, because obviously Mick Wall was a massive Marillion fan in that time. But of course, it also famously got the one-word review from some wag or other, which simply read SHT, which I bet he thought was very CLVR. Yeah, even if it was true, which it isn't, he might have liked to have provided some more context as to how he arrived at that opinion. And that's music critics for you, and that's why I hate them. Anyway, we are going to get to the fourth and final track of this random foreplay, and I hope you've enjoyed the songs I've picked. Let me know again if I've been picking the right ones, because I don't know. But yeah, the final batch of 3. If you know the album, you know what they are. If you only know the single, you know what's coming up, because I am indeed not even going to go through the motions. I'm just going to see what comes up and play. Where the Heart Rules the Mind is my final choice, which made it all the way to number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100, and probably did even better on the rock charts, I dare say. Oh, did I say it's Where the Heart Rules the Mind? Because that's wrong. Told you I didn't know it. It's When the Heart Rules the Mind, which probably makes more sense now that I come to think of it. Anyway, this is a pure Hackett and Howe collaboration. And yeah, here's me hearing it for the first time. Here we go. All right. When the Heart Rules the Mind. A little bit of a Woodley coda there that didn't end the song on the bang that it probably should have. But that aside, what a cracking track. Yeah, I greatly enjoyed that. And I can see why it was a big hit. Well, big-ish in America at least, 14, as I said, and number 3 on the mainstream rock charts. Elsewhere, not so much. 62 in Canada, 82 in the UK, but you know, the UK didn't do rock and still doesn't. I don't know why. I don't understand that, but yeah, it's how it is. But I love that, and it's not guaranteed that I would, because just because the song leads off with their biggest hit and best known song doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be my cup of tea, because I'm not, shockingly, that big a fan of Asia's Heat at the moment. It's fine, but it's only my 8th favourite on the debut. 9th if you include Ride Easy. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, good stuff. I did enjoy everything that I heard, and that song does stand out above the other tracks to a degree, but everything was good. So definitely not an SHT album, perhaps not a GRT album either, but definitely a GD album, if you see what I'm doing there. So I will happily pick this up at some point. So let me know which edition I should get. Should I just go cheap and get the album itself, or go for the all singing or dancing one with the live stuff and various bonus tracks, which just seems to be the singles remixed multiple times? Not sure I need that particularly, but yeah, let me know, and I'll add it to the list of things to get around to buying eventually, which is to say it'll happen sooner than it would have had I not actually done this little process. Yeah. Now, Trick of the Tail is still on that list of things I'm going to buy eventually, and the reason that's there is, of course, a few months earlier I listened to some of that for not the second time. So Steve Hackett's getting some features on this channel this year. He's not, as I say, someone I follow particularly closely, because I haven't listened to a great deal of early Genesis, and I haven't really listened to any of his solo stuff. I did see him with Transatlantic at High Voltage in 2010 when he came on to do Return of the Giant Hogweed. So I've seen him live for 8 minutes. But he seems like a good bloke. And, you know, I mentioned Ian Mosley earlier from Marillion, who, of course, had previously worked with Hackett before joining Marillion. So there's all these connections. Anyhow, you can probably find my look back at Trick of the Tail floating around somewhere else for you about now. But either way, thank you for joining me for this today. And I will simply say bye for now, but I hope not for long.
It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for.